the world in noise. The first thing you notice is the static, not the soft, nostalgic hiss of an old vinyl record, but a jagged drizzle of data, notifications, headlines, horns, and hurried breath. It's everywhere, braided into traffic lights and timelines, echoing inside half-lit bedrooms at 2 in the morning. You wake to it, scroll through it, work inside it, and fall asleep hoping tomorrow's version will hiss a little softer. Somehow, in the rare moments when the volume dips, there's an ache, a phantom limb of stimulation twitching for the next fix. Modern life sells this roar as proof of momentum. The more tabs you keep open, the more alive you must be. Yet momentum without direction is only spinning in place, and the spin is dizzying. A body can't draw a full breath when every pocket of silence is instantly patched with another song, another short, another urgent ping. So the lungs learn to sip. The mind learns to multitask its misery. The heart, crowded by competing narratives, beats faster than it needs to, rushing to keep pace with a story that never finally pauses. Look around. Cafes glow with blue-white faces, fingers tapping screens instead of tabletops. Train platforms, once alive with ordinary conversation, now hum a private, asynchronous choir. 1,000 individual shows, none of them in sync. Even our dreams feel sponsored. Brand logos crawl beneath the eyelids because the last thing we saw before surrendering to sleep was an ad, disguised as advice, disguised as an emergency. Yet no one calls it prison. We call it culture, opportunity, hustle. We call it keeping up, staying informed, never missing out. But there is a cost. The subtle evaporation of inner space. That timeless interior room where intuition whispers and real rest begins. To reclaim that room, we must first recognize the bars we've built out of bytes and background clamor. Only then can we ask a harder question. What does freedom truly sound like once the noise finally stops? For most of us, a quieter life feels dangerous. An empty stage where every unresolved doubt might take the microphone. And yet that stage is exactly where liberation rehearses. The journey toward that stage begins by stripping away a compelling mirage. The illusion of freedom itself. Our next stop. The illusion of freedom. Freedom is a slogan stamped on billboards, a hashtag fluttering beneath inspirational posts. We are told we can be anything, go anywhere, own everything, so long as we stay in motion. Yet real freedom has never been about the length of the leash. It is about removing the leash altogether. You sign up for platforms that promise connection, only to discover you've traded privacy for likes. You fill calendars with options, only to realize every yes is another lock on your time. You binge watch other people's adventures until your own life feels like a loading screen. Choice unexamined becomes a labyrinth where every corridor looks different but leads to the same restless center. We chase novelty because it mimics progress. Yet progress without purpose is drift, and drift is a cage with transparent walls. The market knows this. It monetizes the tunnel by decorating it with endless entertainment and by mistaking constant stimulation for self-expression. Consider the gigabytes of photos stored yet rarely revisited, the half-read articles saved for a someday that never arrives, the subscriptions renewing while the heart questions their relevance. Each possession, digital or physical, carries a maintenance fee, not always of money but of attention, and attention is the currency of consciousness. Spend it poorly, and you feel bankrupt even amid abundance. Imagine surrendering the illusion for a moment. No algorithm predicting desire before it arises. No earbuds masking the city's pulse. Space opens between thoughts. A breath you forgot you were holding finally releases. You notice cracks in pavement forming constellations, the perfume of rain on concrete, the kindness of a stranger's brief smile. Here lies freedom's first paradox. It feels like less before it becomes more. Subtraction, not addition, clears the runway. And once the engines of expectation quiet, an authentic rhythm surfaces, waiting to lead you home. To follow, you must first hear it, and hearing requires silence. A silence many secretly fear. That fear is our next frontier. Stay with the discomfort because on the other side lies the clearest signal your life has ever broadcast. The silence that frightens. Silence has a reputation. To many, it is an empty hallway where every echo is a secret you tried to bury. Sit still, and the checklist of undone tasks charges in like creditors. Close your eyes, and old regrets screen their director's cut on the backs of your lids. That's why we avoid quiet spaces. They double as confessionals. Our biology conspires with our psychology. The brain craves stimulus the way skin craves sunlight. When external input drops, the default mode network lights up, replaying memories, rehearsing futures. For those unaccustomed to inner stillness, this surge feels like drowning in one's own thoughts. Yet the fear is seldom the noise of the mind. It is the content we've postponed. Grief uncatalogued, guilt shapeshifted into sarcasm, dreams shelved for someday. In silence, the inventory resurfaces, and the curator is you. No wonder the phone becomes a lifeline, bright enough to blind the exhibit. Psychologists describe sensory deprivation studies where volunteers, sealed away from sound and light, hallucinate within hours. The psyche, starved of input, fabricates its own theater. Similarly, ordinary people left alone with unstructured time often report spikes in anxiety. We have become stimulus addicted, silence intolerant. But let's reframe the unease. When a muscle twitches during recovery, it signals growth. When old wounds sting beneath disinfectant, healing has begun. The agitation that rises in quiet is proof of life stirring, trauma thawing. It is not an alarm to flee, it is an invitation to witness. Accept the invitation, and shadows sharpen into shapes you can name. Name them and their power drains. On the other side lies a hush not of emptiness but of spaciousness, room enough to host your entire being without apology. Think of entering a dim attic after years away. Dust motes swirl, boxes slump, artifacts surface. Sorting them is emotional labor, yet liberation lives in every item acknowledged and archived. Nature reinforces the lesson. Babies settle into soft lullabies. Seeds sprout beneath patient soil. Glaciers sculpt mountains without fanfare. Silence is not void, it is incubation. Culturally, we treat pauses in conversation like cracked screens, flaws to be patched with jokes or weather reports. Yet a pause, honored, can turn strangers into listeners and listeners into allies. Leadership coaches now teach executives to hold intentional silence before speaking because the air thickens with anticipation. Practiced alone, the skill transports into public spheres. Meetings feel less like firefights, more like improv jazz. Relationships soften. Creativity unspools. Health markers nudge upward. These dividends accumulate, proving that inner quiet pays compound interest on every metric that matters. Cross this interior bridge, and you discover equilibrium. Equilibrium will be vital as we dissect the machinery of external noise, the very engine that keeps most people from ever reaching this sanctuary. Anatomy of the inner noise. Open a laptop and 20 notifications compete for attention. Parallel lanes merging into a single bottleneck called consciousness. Neuroscientists warn that the mind cannot multitask. It merely toggles, suffering micro-whiplash as it pivots. Each pivot leaks cognitive fuel until fatigue feels endemic. Scroll culture exploits two ancient impulses: novelty-seeking and social belonging. Every swipe might reveal threat or opportunity, gossip or glory. Dopamine spikes anticipate discovery. Cortisol surges if you sense exclusion. The loop is addictive because it mirrors survival wiring, yet the predators and tribes are pixel ghosts. Add background music, open office chatter, perpetual advertising, and you produce an auditory fog through which the brain must shout to hear itself. Over time, the shout becomes the norm. Anything softer registers as boredom. Boredom, however, is the mind-clearing cache, readying for deeper work. Consider the mental browser crashes we call burnout. They arrive when input surpasses processing, when experience outpaces integration. Memory fragments scatter like unsaved documents after a power outage. Creativity shrinks because the stage is cramped with unsolicited actors. There's also emotional fragmentation. doom scroll past humanitarian crises while laughing at memes. The heart, denied time to grieve or celebrate properly, files everything under miscellaneous, and numbness settles, a protective anesthesia against overload. Morning commute illustrates the pattern. Alarm beeps a melody engineered to jolt. The weather app autoplays a clip. Headlines flash tragedies. Earbuds blast curated playlists. Adverts scream above strangers on the train. By the desk's first keystroke, your nervous system is already saturated. Why is the world built this way? Because attention is currency. Outrage keeps you scrolling for a resolution that never arrives, while envy nudges you toward purchases promising parity. Even positive content modulates mood to keep the cycle frictionless. Tech firms are not villains, they are organisms following incentive gradients. The onus, therefore, returns to you. If attention is gold, you must build vaults with clear withdrawal policies. Audit your soundscape. Replace random playlists with intentional quiet between tasks. Noise-canceling headphones become shields against cognitive pickpockets. Introduce friction. Set devices to grayscale. Log out so re-entry requires a mindful pause. Move chargers outside the bedroom. These micro-barriers reclaim micro-freedoms. None of this implies technophobia. The goal is sovereignty within modernity. Curating inputs restores signal-to-noise ratio, allowing insights seeded in the attic of Chapter 3 to germinate. As your cognitive landscape quiets, a different soundtrack emerges, one composed not by algorithms but by awareness. That music will guide us through the doorway, awaiting in the next chapter, where silence reveals its architect's blueprint. Silence as portal. Imagine a room where sunlight pools on the floorboards and you can hear dust settle. No task lists sneak under the door. In that hush, the contours of your breathing become audible geography. You are finally in conversation with existence, and existence answers in sensations rather than sentences. Mystics call silence a doorway. Christians speak of the still, small voice. Buddhists of shunyata, Sufis of fana. Neuroscientists note that during deep meditation, scattered brain regions harmonize. The vocabulary differs. The vector converges inward. Silence restores baseline. Cortisol drops. Heart variability balances. Executive circuits come online. Creativity, long stifled by noise pollution, tiptoes out with fresh paint. Insights flicker, unhurried yet luminous, because empty space is the canvas genius prefers. Crossing the threshold feels awkward at first. Minutes seem too long. You fidget, bargain, fantasize about productivity spikes. Stay. Past the restlessness blooms presence thick as honey. Time dilates. You notice the taste of saliva, the orchestra inside a single breath. These details were never absent. Your bandwidth was occupied. Silence reframes problems. What loomed huge shrinks. What felt trivial may reveal root causes. Decisions crystallize, not through linear analysis, but through holistic resonance. You simply know. Science supports the wonder. Duke University found that 2 hours of quiet spur new neurons in the hippocampus. Short retreats elevate gamma band activity linked to integrative thinking and compassion. A rested brain is kinder and more insightful. Consider a cello. Between bow strokes exists breath. Without gaps, melodies smear into monotone. Silence is the grammar of sound, punctuation that lets meaning emerge. In human life, events gain coherence only when bracketed by pauses long enough for reflection. People embracing these pauses activate a guidance system. Intuition, conscience, the still point. They make fewer yet better decisions, sense relationship shifts, detect opportunities others miss. The portal supplies not superpowers but upgraded perception. Begin crossing with humble rituals. Sipping tea without distraction. Watching evening shadows stretch. The intention is not enlightenment but witnessing ordinary magic once noise recedes. Each visit conditions the psyche to remember stillness as home. Life will yank you back. Sirens, deadlines, family drama. That is fine. The door never locks. It swings both ways. Next, we'll meet travelers who returned from this interior landscape, carrying a freedom that weathered external storms. The seed of inner freedom picture. A prisoner who discovers the cell door was never locked. That revelation is interior freedom, claimed within the jurisdiction of consciousness. A lawyer on sabbatical wakes before dawn on a cabin porch, listening to wind sift through pines. She returns to work yet declines the frantic pace, negotiating boundaries that protect her silence. Profits rise because clarity replaced frenzy. A former athlete, identity shattered by injury, sits daily beside a river. In the murmuring current, he finds rhythms not measured by trophies. Coaching emerges transmitted with calm authority born of stillness. Circumstances change less than perceptions. The silence-practiced individual carries sanctuary into elevators, deadline meetings, playground chaos. Disruptions land on deeper ground, absorbed rather than amplified. Freedom manifests as choicefulness. You respond instead of react. You notice urges without obeying each one. Manipulation, whether from advertisers or inner critics, meets humor rather than helplessness. Metrics evolve. Instead of collecting experiences to fill voids, you curate moments expanding presence. Attention invests in people and causes aligning with values clarified in quiet. Psychiatrists note that contemplative routines reduce rumination. Entrepreneurs credit silent retreats for breakthrough strategies. Parents practicing mindful pauses report fewer reactive outbursts. The ripple is social. A manager grounded in quiet shifts corporate culture. A teacher opens class with 60 seconds of breathing, and grades rise. There is an ecological dividend. Stillness heightens sensitivity to natural cycles. Breeding stewardship. You protect what you perceive as kin. Liberty remains fragile if unmaintained, but Chapter 7 offers tools for daily cultivation. Prepare to translate lofty insight into grounded habit, ensuring the unlocked door never again feels closed. Your journey continues. Forward. Practices that make silence audible. Begin with breath, the ancient metronome. Inhale 4 counts. Hold. Exhale 6. Repeat until static lowers enough to hear rhythm behind thought. Practice while waiting in line before unlocking your phone. After reading an email that spikes your pulse. Conduct a digital audit. Disable non-essential notifications. Relocate addictive apps. Schedule screen-free hours. Replace the vacuum with a stroll or a soft gaze out a window. Even city parks wield restorative frequencies. 10 minutes among leaves recalibrates cortisol more effectively than an hour of doom scrolling. Guided meditations and ambient soundscapes help, but are scaffolds, not destinations. The aim is to wean auditory crutches until pure silence feels delicious. Ritualize monotasking. Wash dishes with no podcast. Savoring warmth of water, gleam of plates. Drive radio-free. Observing billboards drift like clouds. Micro-silences knit a larger fabric of calm. Share silence. Group meditation retreats collectively watching a sunset. Paradoxically, quiet in company deepens connection. Design a daily template. On waking, avoid screens for 30 minutes. Journal 3 lines. At midday, close eyes for 5 breaths before eating. Post-work, walk 5 blocks with phone silenced. Before sleep, list 3 still moments. Gratitude trains, recognition of quiet as reward. Leverage habit stacking. Stretch without music. Brew coffee mindfully. Wait at red lights aware of seat wheel heartbeat. Minutes of calm accumulate. Time scarcity reveals itself as attention scarcity. Schedule deepenings. A half-day offline Sabbath. A quarterly retreat. Guard boundaries with focus modes. Batch email. Asynchronous messaging. Delayed replies equal increased clarity. Track qualitative shifts. Shorter reaction times. Richer sensory details. Conversations feeling spacious. Celebrate subtle victories. They mark progress on an inward road. Resistance will arise. Treat it as teacher. Restlessness highlights patterns still tethered to noise. Approach with curiosity, not judgment. Silence training is return, again and again, to presence. Soon the practices become identity. You are one who listens before leaping, whose presence lowers a room's volume. From there, the awakening of Chapter 8 emerges organically. The awakening silence is neither luxury nor punishment. It is the birthplace of sane action. Imagine tomorrow. Dawn breaks, yet instead of sprinting toward screens, you linger, letting birds annotate the light. The urge to check messages rises like a habitual ghost. You greet it with a smile and return to breath. That single decision edits the day's narrative. Deadlines crowd, colleagues clamor, yet you carry stillness as stabilizer. Decisions stem from clarity, not pressure. Meetings shorten, conflicts cool. You end the day with energy to spare because noise passed through instead of lodging inside. Over weeks, this pattern amplifies. Sleep deepens, dreams grow lucid. Food tastes richer because you chew with awareness. Commutes become moving meditations where insight arrives unforced. Entertainment shifts. You choose art that nourishes, conversations that expand. Friends remark on your glow. Some ask your secret. You share by example, inviting them on a silent walk, gifting a blank notebook with the prompt, "Fill these pages with whatever surfaces when the world goes quiet." Eventually, circumstances test the practice. A project implodes, a loved one falls ill, global news spikes fear. The old reflex would amplify chaos. The new habit inserts a pause, allowing grief to flow without drowning hope. You become a lighthouse, presence steady while storms batter the coast. This awakening is not a finish line. It is a threshold into a lifelong conversation. Silence, once foreign, now feels like native soil calling you home repeatedly. Chapter 9 distills that invitation into a final crystalline truth, a whisper designed to accompany you whenever life's volume climbs too high. The last truth. Quiet falls. A breeze murmurs through unseen leaves, then settles. You sit inside the soundlessness and discover it is not empty. It is exquisite fullness, brimming with possibilities uncluttered by commentary. A final whisper. You were never caged by circumstance, only by clamor. You will never be free until you feel the silence. Now, feel it. Carry this hush like a talisman. When crosswalk lights flash, inboxes overflow, or voices argue on glowing rectangles, touch the memory of this still point. Let it widen inside your chest, inhalation spacious, exhalation sure. The world will resume its course, but you now know the backstage door.